Breaking news, Donald Trump has agreed with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, wait, could this really be happening? Literally the person I hate more than anyone else in the world agreeing with the bright shining star that is the center of the universe. Is that possible? No, it turned out it wasn't really the case.
Start over.
That was a cleaned up version. Anyway, so here's what he said on Twitter. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I think we have a very real risk of losing the presidency to Donald Trump. And he says, I agree, and that is the only reason they play the impeach card, which cannot be legally used. Which is not true, and I am an expert at board game rules, so you can use the impeach card otherwise. So it seems like they're agreeing on this, but is that what she really said in her interview on Sunday? No, it's not the case. Here is what she actually said.
I think that we have a very real risk of losing the presidency to Donald Trump if we do not have a presidential candidate that is fighting for true transformational change in the lives of working people in the United States. I think that if we elect a president on half measures, that the American people don't quite understand the agenda of a president, a president that says we're fighting for higher wages, but we don't want a $15 minimum wage, fighting for education, but we don't want to make colleges tuition free, fighting for women's rights, et cetera, but we don't want to go all the way with that, then I think we have a very real risk of losing the presidency.
So that's what she actually said.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. And he, of course, left that part out because he doesn't agree with any of those goals, let alone the methods they would use to actually acquire them.
And listen, we do have a huge risk of losing, for Donald Trump winning the presidency again. That's for people who don't want Donald Trump to win again. Yes, there's a huge risk because he won before and it was shocking to everyone. And because a lot of the people in this country are monsters, okay?
Yeah.
But I think, and so I guess he really likes to hear that. And I guess I can't blame him for that. If somebody's saying, yeah, you could be a winner again. Yeah. Sure, she said that and she's right. But the point of her sentence was that she didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, and she believes that
and that's a bad outcome for the earth.
Yes, and it's an outcome that might happen if we choose unwisely in this primary season.
Right.
I agree, there's a very, very, very real chance that he could win. I will talk endlessly about polls that show him losing, but not because I think that they prove that he will lose, just because it's nice to every once in a while feel joy in this world.
I agree.
But yeah, if we choose unwisely, we could lose. I will amend that statement by saying, I have ideas of what I think will be required to beat Donald Trump, but I also could be dead wrong. And anyone who believes that they have the foolproof method of winning, you probably shouldn't trust, because that sort of overconfidence is how we lost in 2016, I think. But anyway, the point of her overall appearance there and what he's sort of leaving out in his original tweet is why she believes we need to begin impeachment proceedings, which we're gonna get to in a second. But I want to show you her response on Twitter to Trump's tweet, where she said, Mr. President, you're from Queens. You may fool the rest of the country, but I'll call your bluff any day of the week. Opening an impeachment inquiry is exactly what we must do when the president obstructs justice, advises witnesses to ignore legal subpoenas, and more. Bye, with a little waving hand. And she's 100% right there. Now, in that interview, she does describe why she thinks that the current strategy on impeachment in the Democratic Party in Congress is wrong, as you'll see.
For me, this question should not be about polls. It should not be about elections. Sure. I think that impeachment is incredibly serious, and this is about the presence and evidence that the president may have committed a crime. In this case, more than one. And so I believe that our decision on impeachment should be based in our constitutional responsibilities and duties, and not in elections or polling. That being said, with the increase in polls, I think the American people are now recognizing in a much broader scale, the depth and the severity of the misconduct coming out of the White House, and a demand to protect our institutions and protect the rule of law in the United States, and at least opening an inquiry into possible misconduct.
Obviously, I could not agree with her more. I am so sick of just, what might it do to the polls in Michigan? Like, oh God, what might it do? What should you do? What is your constitutional responsibility? What precedent are we setting for the future of our country? That is what we should be deciding this based on, not on like, well, maybe like in Quinnipiac, it'll go up 1 point, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I think wrong with that. First, like the idea that Democrats shouldn't start impeachment proceedings because it could hurt them and it could help Trump. He doesn't need any help. He literally doesn't. He has said some of the worst things ever possibly said. He has locked babies up in cages, stripped trans Americans of almost all rights and protections. He has said really terrible things. He has hurt some of his own base. We talk about Harley Davidson often. We talk about people who own homes at the border and what could happen to them, truckers and farmers. Oh my goodness, yes. Nobody cares. His base is strong. They like the mess. They don't need any help. They are going to be there regardless if you throw him in federal prison. They are going to be there writing his name in. That's not why Democrats, if you think that he committed a crime, it is your responsibility to start impeachment proceedings. You can't pick and choose if you think you're gonna win. You can't gerrymander your responsibility as a congressperson. Like Democrats aren't fighting to prevent election fraud and to secure our elections because they just simply think it will help us. It's because it's what's right and it's fair. Like Democrats aren't supposed to accept foreign help either. Even
ideally.
if it would help you win, right? And so it's like, that makes you just as bad as him, not doing it because it could hurt you, even though it won't hurt you because.
Making decisions that will affect the lives of real Americans based purely on partisan political polling concerns is wrong and stupid and bad, and we need to stop it.
Right, plus he doesn't need any help, he's fine, he's good.
Exactly, and at that point, general rule going forward, if somebody makes the case that blank should not be done because it will solidify Trump's base, that person does not know anything about politics. I described this morning, his base is more solid than the surface of a neutron star. It can't get any more solidified. And by the way, if there's 1% of his base that's like kind of like maybe not sure the day before the election, some caravan will magically appear that they'll start talking about on Fox and it'll be solidified. Do what you do because it's right, because it'll benefit the American people and America. That's how you decide which policies to pursue, which paths in terms of whether you should impeach, those sorts of things, because it's the right thing to do, not because you're worried that like 3 more voters in Iowa might finally like, yeah, you know what, I still like Trump. That's not how you run a political party or a political campaign. Here on the Damage Report, we talk a lot about the big banks and their ways of getting rich off the poor. They saturate the market, but there are other options. And I've got info on a socially and environmentally responsible financial institution that has no ATM fees, gives you cash back on every purchase. They even commit 10% of their earnings to charity. It's called Aspiration, and if you go to aspiration.com/TYT to sign up, you'll get these perks, and that's more money to spend or to save or to spend. Just treat yourself.